This is Nick Baisley from FilmSnobbery.com, and I am here covering the Dances with Films, the 16th annual Dances with Films Festival here in Hollywood, and we're actually at our offices here at Hot Pixel Post Production. Who are we speaking with today?
I'm Tom Glynn, the writer and director of a film called Automotive. It's a feature narrative.
Let's always be like this.
Okay.
We can't have any contact.
No, don't worry.
Hey, you.
Man was murdered and a $500,000 statue disappears. With you, I have motive, you're at the scene,
I didn't kill anyone.
but you are the only one having an affair with his wife.
Do I know you? I never cared about the money cancels. It was always you.
Fantastic. And the unique thing about Automotive, from what I understand, is that it's kind of one of those one location kind of pieces, kind of like Ryan Reynolds and Buried type of deal, or tell us a little bit about it.
In a way, yes. In a way, no. The entire film shot from inside a car.
Okay.
So from that point of view, yeah, we're always in one location, but a car is obviously mobile. So the film is set in LA, and the movie takes place all over LA.
So I was going to say, do you spend a lot of time establishing the car as a set piece, but then do you also focus a lot on what's going on around the characters?
Yeah, I didn't want to make the conceit of the film too heavy-handed. I knew that, like, by the time you finished watching an entire movie shot from inside a car, you would feel that you were inside a car. So I didn't want to, like, lead with that, so to speak. And so I tried to play a lot with shooting. If you shoot directly out a window of a car and you don't see any frame of the car, how do you know you're shooting from inside a car, right? So I tried to play with the frame of the car, using it sometimes to make the car feel present, sometimes shooting clean through a window so that the car kind of disappears. Probably more a factor about shooting from inside a car was that the story doesn't always take place inside the car. I mean, you could write it that way, but then it would probably seem a bit cheesy or forced. So I let things happen away from the car, and what we see is sometimes what happens just before or just after a major event, and so we're trying to put together the story in a bit of a puzzle way.
When you are writing something like Automotive, as both a writer and a director, are you kind of self-directing when you write, or do you kind of go more freeform, a little more like, okay, I'm going big, and then I'll reel myself in when I'm directing?
So do you mean in terms of like a budget? Like, I'm not going to write something that I can't afford? Yeah, that was very... that was in the forefront of my mind, budget. And this idea came from watching a movie called 10 by Abbas Kiarostami, an Iranian director. And I was literally thinking, God, how do I make a movie for very little money? And in 10, there'll be like these 10-minute or 15-minute long shots from inside a car. And it might be on, say, the woman's son as he's sitting in the passenger seat and he's being driven around town, and you just stay on him. And I thought, wow, you can really just put a camera in a car and make a whole movie. But I suppose the idea kind of sparked when I thought about combining that with a classic Hollywood structure, in this case particularly a film noir structure. So it was suddenly interesting to me when I thought, well, the push and pull between being stuck in a car but then trying to create this interesting narrative that would have classic thriller and mystery elements to it.
What was the decision on what kind of car you were going to use? Was it literally, well, this is what we have, or was it more of like, I have to find the perfect car?
Well, I definitely wanted to find the perfect car, but I didn't know what I was going to use. I knew it was going to be an old car, just to give it something unique, to have something nostalgic about it. There's something nostalgic, I think, in the story. But I didn't know what old car, and since we were only going to see from the inside, it wasn't really that important what the car looked like from the outside. I wanted something unique from the interior that would stand out beyond just being old. So I looked at a lot of different things, and then of course space became an issue, and then cost became an issue. And we ended up settling on what I think is the perfect car. It's a really odd bird of a car. It's a 1964 Mercury Montclair, and its nickname was the Breezeway because the front of the car is this way and you have your windshield. Normally the back window slopes down. This one slopes the opposite direction, which is kind of a more of a 50s styling, kind of a Jetsons styling. And they called that a breezeway window, and it was actually a power window, so it goes down. But it makes it really unique from the inside. It gives you a lot of glass that's angled in different ways, and so you get some really unique views out of it.
Was the glass ever an issue while you were filming in terms of, glare, reflection, anything like that?
Well, what's interesting, actually, cars from back then had flat glass. You can't really find a car nowadays or built anytime recently with actual flat glass anywhere in it. All the glass in this car was flat except for the windshield. So the windshield was the only one that gave us real trouble with glare. But in daytime stuff, I had already decided that from a cinematography point of view, I was going to let things outside the car blow out rather than, you can put an ND filter on the windows and kind of knock down the exterior light to make it all in focus. But A, that looks a little bit false, and B, it was going to be too time-consuming and too cost-prohibitive. So I'd already decided I was going to let the outside blow out. So when we had reflections and things like that, I tried to use them to our advantage.
This is not the first film you've made. You've had a career in film for a while. You used to be out in New York. Now you're here. Before that, other places. And has it gotten easier to make a film? Everyone says like, oh, film is so democratized now because everything's digital and everything's this, that, and the other thing. You can make a movie for $100 now if you really wanted to. Yeah. You've been through the process more than once, and you've been through, you've done it to some acclaim as well. You've gone to, been nominated for awards, and this is fantastic stuff. Has it gotten easier?
I don't know. Yeah, it's gotten easier, I think. But I started in filmmaking in the NYU summer program way back when, shooting film and cutting on a Steenbeck and, literally splicing and taping. And then I went to grad school at Columbia, and they were one of the first programs who kind of quit shooting film to save money, and also I think to take away some of the precious notion about what you're shooting, to just say get out there and practice and shoot a lot. So we started shooting SVHS, and that pretty quickly helped me realize, it didn't really matter if I shot on Super 35 or anamorphic or, you can shoot on SVHS, and if you've got a really good story, it's going to play. Mm-hmm. And of course, there were movies coming out in the late 90s, like The Celebration, that were shot in these little mini DV cameras, and that were exceptional movies, I think really, really good and kind of groundbreaking, but they were shot for nothing. So, back then you could do it on a little mini DV tape, and today I think you can do it in the same way. It's just that it's going to look a lot better. I mean, mini DV looked pretty crappy when you blew it up. It still worked for some movies. Today, you can shoot on a whole handful of cameras that to a layman's eye, depending on how you shoot it, it may not even be distinguishable from something shot on film. So yeah, easier, just as easy, but better quality, I'd say.
Do you have a preference now for, because you've worked with film, that you have a preference for film versus digital?
I'm a bit of a nostalgic. I mean, yeah, film cameras are great, and there's an awesome mystery about you shoot a thing, and then you're like, I don't know if it came out. It makes you a little nervous, and you got to wait until it gets developed. But I've been shooting videos so much for so long that there's not much of a preference, in my opinion.
Dailies are like Christmas every day. It's like in some days you get the Star Wars AT-AT, and then there are other days you get clothes. Yeah,
totally. And the only other feature that I've done, I wrote and produced, and I did not direct. A good friend of mine who I went to school with did, Joe Costello. but that movie was called The War Within, out in '05, and that we shot on HD. So that wasn't shot on film. So I haven't done a feature on film. It was just shorts and things in school.
Do you have any preference on working between shorts or features, or is there anything for you like, okay, I like shorts because, you know, they're not as time consuming and you can get them into a festival, you can get them some attention very quickly. You know, maybe the sales aspect of them is not as strong, but, you know, you can kind of, it's almost like you can bang out more in a shorter period of time than a feature where it might take up the next 3-4 years of your life.
Features for me. I was in film schools for a long time and made a ton of shorts. I also teach some film, and so I've done enough shorts. For me, a feature is more enjoyable because it's a bigger thing to bite off and wrestle with, and that's a lot of fun. And then obviously it's got a market. You know, there's not really a good market for shorts anymore. Plus, it used to be you could make a short and that was your calling card, and you'd show up with a short and a script, and you might get it financed. But today, you know, someone's going to say, well, go shoot it for $10,000, shoot it yourself and bring it back and let me see it. So a short it's not going to get you as far as it used to, I don't think.
Or they'll just find you on YouTube, like Sam Raimi did for the new Evil Dead.
Right.
As someone who has gone to film school and also has done some teaching as well, the question does come up occasionally, and we actually used to do a podcast on FilmSnobbery called Things I Didn't Learn in Film School. Right. And I guess that's part of my question to you is, what didn't you learn in film school that you do make a point to teach now? Or is there anything that you're like, you know what, now that I'm thinking about it, they should be teaching this?
Yeah, it would be mostly industry related. You can go into film school, at least when I went in, which was a good time ago at this point, and you can have some pretty false notions about how things work, that if you work hard, that you could, someone's going to kind of recognize your talent, and there's some ladder that you can work your way up, like in a corporation. If you want to write or direct, if you want to be one of the primary creatives in making films, there's absolutely no ladder. You could spend your whole career in post-production, and you could get to the point where you're literally winning Oscars as an editor. But you show up with a script, and you say, I want to direct this. No one's going to give you money for it because you're an editor. You're not a director. I'm not going to risk $2 million or $10 million or $15 million is a lot of money. Go try to raise that money to open a business. It's tough, right? Well, the business world is, generally speaking, a better business to get into than the entertainment business. So if you're trying to raise $15 million, it's a lot easier doing it, if you've got a stamp company than it is if you're trying to make a feature film. So there's no ladder to get you there. If what you really, really want to do is write and direct, and nobody can convince you otherwise, then you just have to go straight at it. That's something I wish I had been told, because I think I waffled a bit and would work on this project in that regard, and this project in that regard. But, I've never been as happy as I have been making Automotive. It's been super fun, and it's just confirmed for me that I really have to direct my own films.
When you were choosing your cast, your crew, getting everything together, what were you looking at people that you'd either worked with in the past, or did you say, for this, I want to work with people that I've not worked with before to kind of get a unique perspective on my own work?
I would have been happy to work with people I had worked with before, but everything I had done up until that point had been in New York. I was in New York for about 11 years and moved out to LA, really to Santa Monica in '06. And it was a bit of a shocker because, I'd been in New York long enough, not like any big deal, but I had just been around long enough and had made one film that I knew a lot of people in New York. I knew kind of the film community there to some extent. And I got out here, and it's shocking how little communication goes on between New York and LA in the industries. It's kind of like...
It's almost like two separate industries.
It totally is. And nobody cared that you had done X, Y, and Z with New York companies. Nobody in LA knows you. Nobody knows you. They're not going to pick up the phone. So, I would have been happy to work with some people I'd worked with before, and I tried in some instances, but living in LA, it just sort of meant I had to make a fresh start, which in a way was fun.
Now, did you go ahead and, you've been in LA for a little while now. Yeah. Did you, when you were first kind of getting things together out here, were there any preconceived notions that you had that now you can dispel for people who are moving out here, that you can say, yeah, I was wrong about this, or, it was not as advertised, and that you can kind of pass on now?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so here's the story. I was a writer and producer on The War Within. We got nominated for 2 Independent Spirit Awards. Best Screenplay, which was, a big deal, and then Best Supporting Actor. And we were super excited about that. I didn't know too much about the Indie Spirit Awards, but when I came out here and kind of learned about it, I was like, wow, this is a big deal. This is great. I figured after getting that nomination, and I think we lost out to Capote, right? We were up against some really big movies. Ours was like far and away the smallest and least well known. But I figured I could, I move out here. I've got this recent nomination as a screenwriter. And I had a bunch of scripts I was peddling, which I thought were very good, and I still think, are very good. So I had good content. I had some reputation, a feature that was out in the theaters that was nominated for an Indie Spirit Award. And I figured I could call an agent and say, hey, I've got some work. Will you take a look at it? Would you consider representing me? I'd love to sell some of this stuff or get some of these other things in motion. Couldn't get anyone to pick up the phone. Wow. It's like, well, who are you? We don't take anything unsolicited. Well, I'm trying to get an agent so that it's not unsolicited, But it didn't matter. I couldn't, I suppose if I had peddled harder, but, I needed to kind of support myself and make a living. I didn't have time to go take sort of nonsense meetings to try to get people to know me and find somebody to represent me. So I figured I'd bide my time and get a project that I wanted to make for myself.
So is it about, okay, I'm waiting for you guys, so I'm just going to make my own stuff while, you guys kind of sit on your hands because I don't have time for that stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was, There's only, it was clear, it was clear that my idea of what the industry would be and how receptive it would be to somebody like myself was totally wrong. And as soon as I figured that out, I wasn't going to beat my head against a wall. I was like, okay, nobody's interested in talking to me at this point unless it's like my lawyer calling or an agent calling, and those are the people I'm trying to get to represent me, so I'm going to have to do something more on my own.
Did you, LA has a large film festival kind of spread. There's ones in Santa Monica, there's ones here in Hollywood, they've got them in Palm Springs rather, and Idlewild, and they're just Long Beach, they're everywhere out here. In San Diego, literally, every weekend you could go to another festival if you really wanted to. Are you active in all in seeing, even from a perspective of not only as a filmmaker but a writer who might want to work with another director at some point or something like that? Are you active at all in the festival circuit to kind of just see what's out there right now, maybe even what's hitting with audiences or see sensibilities? Do you have a strategy with anything like that?
I haven't, to be honest. It's probably not to my benefit that I haven't, but there's so many, and it takes a lot of time. And I guess I felt that networking was not going to get me a movie made. I wasn't going to network my way into financing, and I wasn't going to, I could maybe convince some people to like me, and even better, convince some people that, boy, I was really talented and I should be given a shot. But I wasn't going to be able to convince anybody to give me a shot. And that's kind of what I mean from a film school thing. If there's something that you could be taught in film school that I think is pretty critical, it's that no one's just going to give you a bunch of money because film is a terrible business model. And, people are trying to mitigate their risk as best they can. And that's just the way it is, they shouldn't do anything different. None of us, if we had a lot of money, would be giving millions of dollars to people who had never made a film before. It's crazy, So, that's how the industry goes. You're going to have to make your own break.
Do you, as a filmmaker now, with crowdfunding being as big as it is and starting to really be even more prevalent now that you have the Veronica Mars, the Zach Braffs, stuff like that, do you see yourself using that as a source for financing in the future for anything, even if it's just for a piece of what you're doing for post-production or the festival circuit or something like that?
Definitely, possibly. I didn't use it this time around, but I will probably use it just to finish up some stuff on automotive. I raised the budget on automotive myself just by selling shares, and I thought that was going to be impossibly difficult, but it was a little bit easier than I suspected, thanks in large part to some old and tremendously supportive friends, which is very moving, when you start trying to raise money for something and people step up to the plate like they did in my case. But I'll probably use Kickstarter to raise some just finishing funds, and then in the future, if there were the right kind of project that we needed to raise money and there was, you'd probably need a name attached of some degree or some kind of really smart story. But yeah, if the situation were right, I would definitely consider it.
Fantastic. Now you guys are having your world premiere at Dances with Films this year. Why did you choose Dances with Films as your premiere location? Was it by default, like some people, or was it more like this put you tell me?
So I was in a bit of a peculiar situation. I had run out of the funding that I had. I had finished the film and I had had a cut of it. My editor, Andrew Buckland, is a great editor, and he had to disappear to go do some paid work on Wolverine. So he disappeared to Australia. And I wasn't quite happy with the movie yet, so I was tinkering with it to try to find the tone, and a lot of that had to do with music and how the movie jumps around in time a bit. And once I felt pretty satisfied with it, that was kind of the end of the road until I was going to raise more money. And I didn't quite have the heart to be asking for more money at that point. So I started applying to festivals with essentially an unfinished cut. I'm not sure that I would advise that because the big festivals are hard enough to get into if you don't have a star or a mini studio or something behind you. The numbers are just crazy. I think Sundance this year got like over 12,000 submissions. And then you look at their slate of features, narrative features, and there's 2 categories and maybe, 24, 36 movies.
Yeah, I mean, total, it's like 120 films out of 12,000. So you're literally, the joke kind of, I think even last year was like when everyone was talking about like the 99%, the 1%, and like, it's literally that.
It's worse than that. Yeah. It's way worse than that. Because it's way worse than that. And then you look at the movies that get in, and they're not movies made by guys like me who are total unknowns with, and I have a great cast in my movie, but they're not like celebrities. And I think they've all got real futures, but you don't see many movies. You see maybe 1 or 2 by guys like me in those festivals. So the odds are against you. So in my case, I was submitting an unfinished cut to the biggest festivals and started getting rejections, and that was a bit tough. And then I had to stop and think, okay, do I try to raise money and finish this thing? I think I've got a cut that's good enough that shows that this is a really solid and very intelligent, well-made movie. I think it can get in somewhere, where would it be? And so I started, and I didn't know a lot about the sort of other festivals except the ones we all hear about. So I started doing my research, and the thing that I liked about Dances with Films, it was in LA. Mine's an LA movie. It's a film noir, sort of classic LA kind of stuff. But mostly it's because they seem to walk the talk. They're in mid-season, and they really want world premieres, which means they're not going to be piggybacking off of the marketing that they would get from, say, bringing in a Sundance movie. If it's a Sundance movie, everyone can market it. Come see this Sundance movie, and everyone will show up. If it's an unknown movie by an unknown director, world premiering midway through the festival season, that's kind of a tough call because people are like, well, I don't know who these people are, right? It means that Dances with Films, I think, is depending entirely on the quality of their eye to judge and pick good projects. And I think that's ballsy, and I respected that. They don't take projects with big celebrities. They don't take projects with distribution already. So, that cuts out 75% of what you see at most festivals.
Especially here in Hollywood.
Totally here in Hollywood. So, yeah, I respected them. And then sure enough, like I applied there, and they were one of the only festivals that were sending personal emails regularly saying, yeah, we got your submission. Thanks so much. We'll take a look at it. We promise it'll be seen at least twice, blah, blah, blah. Most of the time you send off a check for $80 or $100 and you never hear anything. You don't even hear that you didn't get in, So there was a lot about what they do that I respected, and that had a lot to do with me deciding to premiere there.
And now that you're here, your premiere's going to be, your premiere's tomorrow, right?
No, it was last Saturday night. Saturday night at 9:30. Yeah, we had a packed house, and it was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Is it great to see audience reactions? Does it live up to your expectations?
Totally. And because I hadn't finished the film, once we got in, I suddenly had like 6 weeks to raise money, do a complete sound edit, have the score composed, color time the movie, record and add voiceover, all the ADR. So we were working right up until the day before our screening. So my first time seeing the movie end to end, kind of quietly, without worrying about stopping and color timing and transferring and everything else, was in the theater with everyone.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so it was a great experience for me. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, great. And do you have any other festivals lined up after Dance with Films, or any other idea of maybe what's going to happen with Automotive?
Well, the idea is to get it out the best I can. Everyone would love a theatrical release. If I could do like a day and date kind of thing, which is where they put it in the theaters and on video on demand at the same time, that would be fantastic. But ultimately, any way that I can get it out, I'll be stoked with. In terms of other festivals, I've just kind of turned my attention back to that. I had kind of taken my eye off that target while we were finishing the movie and getting ready for this premiere. So, there's some other festivals I'd like to get into. Our prior film, The War Within, was at Toronto. So if I can convince Toronto that, it'd be a good idea to screen Automotive, I'd love to go back there.
I'd say, get them some Timbits and, maybe a season pass to, some hockey up there, the Canadians or something. I don't know. You'll be good to go.
Maybe your interview will help me with that. I don't know.
Sure. You got that, TIFF programmers? This guy. No, definitely. I know. And no, I definitely want to wish you luck because, the festival circuit, it's long, it's about, depending on what you get into. It could be up to another year of your life on this film. And if you guys decide to definitely do any sort of crowdfunding or additional funds to finish up Automotive More Than It Is, definitely keep us in the loop because, I know that the audience is going to want to, if they didn't get a chance to see it here, they're going to want to see it and they're going to want to see the best cut they can. So I want to thank you for coming and sitting down with us, and I want to say congratulations on your screening at Dances with Films, and I'm looking forward to. I actually haven't seen the flick, so my little camera confession here. So I'm looking forward to eventually seeing it as well, and you guys can probably look forward to a review over on FilmSnobbery.com from it as well. So thank you very much. I appreciate you coming down and chatting with us.
Thank you, Nick. It's been a real pleasure. I appreciate it, and thanks to the Film Snobbery crowd. It sounds like there's a lot of first and second time filmmakers out there. So, nice seeing you guys, and good luck.
Thank you.